Tune in.
Tune in.
Tune in.
It's the power of the game.
It's the power of the game.
It's the Power of the Game podcast by Golf Saudi.
Hello and welcome along to another brand new episode of the Power of the Game podcast by Golf Saudi. We're down here at the beautiful Royal Greens Golf and Country Club, the week of the Aramco Team Series, where the Ladies European Tour will reach its crescendo for the 2021 season. And I'm delighted to be joined by the Director of Instruction and Education here at Golf Saudi, Stephen Troup. Stephen, it's great to have you on the podcast.
Thanks very much, Robbie. Yeah, good to be here.
Did you ever envisage when you became a golf professional, 16, 17 years ago, that one day you would be heading up a national program for golf development in a place where golf traditionally and historically just simply hasn't existed?
No, not at all, actually. Yeah, I got into golf quite differently than most people did, quite late. My pathway into being a golf professional was probably more of the reverse than most people, where as a good golfer, perhaps maybe an aspiring tour professional or whatever, then end up going into, working in the club industry or working in coaching. For me, it was more along the lines of not that good a golfer, but enjoyed playing golf, and ended up working in a golf shop part-time, and then being around that environment with those sort of people kind of then gave me more of a love for the game and more enjoyment in it, and that got me better, and then got into it from there.
So you never actually aspired to play professionally?
No, not at all, actually. I think there was obviously that kind of admission that I wasn't as good as I needed to be, but
good to have that level of self-awareness.
Yeah, that's it, and it's just sometimes you just got to be a bit realistic. But for me, it just didn't seem like it was an achievable goal, and I got kind of quite good a lot quicker, but it was always embedded in coaching and custom fitting and stuff like that, that kind of that opportunity to turn pro then came more out of an interest of trying to help other people.
So where did that fascination in coaching first start for you, Stephen?
So I think the facility that I worked in kind of part-time and watching other golf pros, PGA professionals working in that environment, such a large amount of people coming in on a daily basis at this facility that I worked at, and you kind of see so many different people and different movements, and you dig down a little bit deeper, understanding the differences and how they move and then how they learn. And I think with such a broad spectrum of people, it kind of just became a little bit more fascinating than kind of just playing golf with your friends all the time. You see how different people do different things, and that kind of just gave birth to finding out more about it, and that happened. Worked there for about 4 years, and then was offered the opportunity to turn pro. And I think it's not something that I expected to do, but I took a year out after university to try and find a job, and then this opportunity came, so then it's back to university for that. So.
And you've worked obviously in the Middle East for a long time. You recently joined the program in Golf Saudi, but prior to that you were in Oman and also Doha as well. Yeah. So you know the region very well. We're going to get on to some of the experiences that you've had, but from your current perspective, is it an overwhelming remit? I mean, to basically be in charge of not just teaching people how to play golf, but growing the game in a region. And I know that obviously there's a whole team, assembled to help that happen. But does that feel in any way daunting or overwhelming at times?
Yeah. I mean, it's a huge project, and it's so vast, and it's an enormity, really, and the coaching aspect of it is one part of it, and we're lucky because we've got a great team within mass participation that are out there pushing forward the programs that we designed to get people into the game. But I mean, I think that the whole project with Golf Saudi, I think, yeah, it is quite daunting because there's so much going on, but it's so exciting, and you get past any of the difficulties because of what can be achieved. And I don't think there's ever been an opportunity anywhere in the world to do something like this, which is why it's a very easy thing to get on board with. And I think every single one of us in the company kind of feels the same way, because it's certainly people that have worked in the golf industry. I think for a lot of people that can be a dream to get to start with a blank canvas, a little bit like a golf course architect, for instance, who just sees a piece of land that's got very little character in it. How can you shape that into being a golf course? Or taking a a unique piece of land and going, well, you can do some really cool stuff with this. A little bit like us as an entire, golf environment that doesn't exist. What can we do?
Well, that's it, because obviously people are quite resistant to change, mainly. And in established golf markets, a lot of people would rail against new ideas, whereas here, as you mentioned, this blank canvas, you can kind of create or fashion your own vision of what you think bringing golf to people should be. Yeah. And that allows you to be very creative, but at the same time, I suppose, also it kind of asks you to reimagine what sort of teaching this game and growing this game in a country which is not familiar with it is like.
Yeah, I think you're right. People generally are quite resistant to change, but that typically comes from the fact that things are already inbuilt in that culture. I think if we look at the transition that's happening now with a modern Saudi Arabia, I don't think it's resistance to change. It's seeing possibilities and opportunities that haven't been available in the past. And again, there's very few places in the world where you could actually say that. So I think when we go out into the public space and mass participation, run something that engages people to try the game, people want to get in there and do it. And that can be as random and as imaginative as you possibly can get, and people want to try it because they haven't had access to these things before. And that's the cool thing about what we get to do on a daily basis, is the fact that we don't have to change modern perceptions of what golf is. And I think certainly for me growing up, golf was always seen as being that sport that the older people did, or people with a lot of money would do, and I think worldwide that's still quite a popular opinion. Whereas when people don't know what golf is, then all of a sudden we get to completely control that narrative, and we can put it out there in the public space in a way that never gets put out anywhere else in the world, or at least then that resistance to change becomes less of a factor.
Absolutely. So in that case, how would you describe to the uninitiated your remit in your role as Director of Instruction and Education? I mean, are you giving lessons? Is it big picture stuff? What's your main area of focus?
Yeah, I guess from my point of view, it's a little bit more bigger picture. I mean, we've done really well with the mass and a team that are out there, delivering golf coaching. The mass participation are all over the country now, and that's the really cool thing, how much it can grow, because anyone should have the opportunity to just have fun, because that's what it really has to be. And sport in general has to be enjoyed by everyone. It can be enjoyed by anyone, making it fun. So I think for me, it's making sure that whatever we create that goes out into the public is, first and foremost, it's got to be fun, and it's got to make people want to try it. And if you can try it, then if you do it the right way, they get a little bit more likely to be engaged. So yeah, it's just trying to set it in the right kind of direction in terms of what modern coaching should be, and what programs need to be, and how do you make it fun and accessible for anyone?
Yeah, there's quite a few things going on here, because I've been in this region a long time. There's always been a big emphasis on the professional game here, and bringing events to this region, showcasing the best players on the planet, and hoping, I think, one day that someone from this part of the world will ascend to that high level. But there hasn't been previously this emphasis, this very forensic sort of investigation into how to grow the game at the grassroots level that we're seeing now. So how do you put a program like that together?
I mean, grassroots golf, I think, exists pretty much most places in the world, certainly golfing destinations. And the one thing I always see with grassroots golf is that it's that conversion into being an actual golfer it's such a tiny amount. They always look at, that the cost then becomes a factor, so you're learning golf at school for free, for instance, and then you have to then have the money to then join a club, because that's where you play. Your parents have got to get you to the golf club, and that time constraint, I think, in modern culture really is quite a difficult thing, especially in where we are in the Middle East, and Saudi in particular, where you'll typically find, parents have got 3, 4, 5 children. It's not like you're one and it's easy to take them to and from activities. So it's about trying to populate the public space with as many different activities that the family can then get involved in as well. So, grassroots maybe where it starts, but it's not just, golf in school. It's what does it look like out in the public space where you can go and play crazy putting miniature golf courses with your parents and your grandparents and your 4-year-olds, and anyone in the family can then play it. And I think that essentially is grassroots. It's just trying to put golf into the public space for as many different people in that first touch kind of element where that engagement grows and it continues to grow, and then they're more likely to then go, you know what, I really enjoy that, or the parents are like, I get it, I understand why golf's a good sport for you, because we know that golf's a fantastic sport, and the behavioural development that you can see in children, you know, golf comes with its values of, you know, honesty and determination and the value of sportsmanship, which I think when you compare it to other sports, it's not quite the same. Golf offers a little bit more, and I think, you know, when parents start to see that, because they've been engaged with it, they don't get to engage with it at school level. The kids can say, oh yeah, I really love golf, Mum, but the parents themselves might not understand it. So yeah, we can get the parents involved, and all of a sudden that engagement rolls in, and then we'll hopefully get more golfers.
Yeah, in fact, most of the professionals that we've spoken to on this podcast, they had great support from their parents. Emily Pedersen being a great example, her father supporting her pretty much from the start, and also through difficult times in her career as well, being there and kind of offering an emotional support, as well as obviously all the practical elements of you know, allowing her to try and realise her potential. And if you look at golf, I suppose the kind of iconic example is Earl Woods with Tiger, that father-son relationship. That, you know, you get these parents that almost live vicariously through their kids, and it's not just wanting them to succeed, it's devising a game plan for them to succeed. And obviously this country won't have that, because the parents are also being introduced to the sport. There won't be that kind of conveyor belt of, but maybe in a generation or two that might start to happen. So I think probably the sort of realization is that it will take quite a bit of time for golf to become embedded in the culture.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think it will take longer than it would do if we were talking about a slightly different location or anywhere else in the world. I think it's the fact that it is new is the opportunity. The fact that, you know, kids are only now starting to get access to sport in schools. The fact that other sports are growing around. People, I think, now are going, you know, we haven't been able to do this in the past. Now there's that influx of people that want to do it. So I think that speeds things up a little bit straight off the bat. I think that the parent aspect, I think that's in itself is an opportunity. I think in certainly what I've seen, you can see those kind of parents that live a little bit more like, this is what I want you to do because that's what I wanted to do. I think it can sometimes get to the point where children are then led down the wrong path because it's not their journey, it's somebody else's journey. And you can see a lot of drop off because they're forced into doing something that may not be fun. You know, if the child gets to do it their way and gets supported along that line, then hopefully you create something that they enjoy doing a lot more instead of being forced into. The choice is there to pick what they want to do. I think, so yeah, having parents there to support I think is massive, but not necessarily drive it because of their motivation.
Not totally crucial. Speaking of Tiger, I know that you and I are probably of the generation who grew up kind of idolizing him or at least being inspired by him on some level, and golf has undergone a transformation as a sport in the last 20 years. And when I say that, probably back in the 90s, a lot of people would have challenged the idea that it even was a sport. You know, it's become undeniably more athletic. Yeah. It's become the age of professionalism, and the money in the game has brought about, and I think led by, the achievements of Tiger have totally transformed what you now see as the professional landscape. So how have you kind of navigated that with your coaching as well, and what would you say your biggest learnings were in terms of how the game is taught and how the game is played in the last 15, 16 years?
I mean, it is so different, and for me, I've only ever known golf since Tiger. I mean, I only play golf because of Tiger. He made golf exciting, and watching him win in '97 at the Masters, that was the first time I'd watched golf on television, and I thought, oh, wow, this is incredible, because that was something the world had never seen. There's so many different stories, so many different firsts that went on that week at Augusta, and he changed I mean, listen, people have changed the game along the ways, and I think that's a term that gets overused a little bit too much. But I think whether we call it modernized the game or, you know, exposed more people to different factors that were on in the game with regards to fitness and the hard work ethic he had. You know, people have had that before, but I think what Tiger brought to it was he packaged all of that together, you know, where Hogan practiced harder than anybody else practiced. Palmer was that kind of world celebrity, you know, Player was that international traveler, but Tiger brought all of that together. And then you've got kind of the race aspect as well, which was such a huge story from that point of view. So they broke a lot of barriers, but what he did was he made it exciting and he made it fun. And I think when people can do that, then, you know, people want to be involved in it a little bit more, because we go back to those general perceptions of golf is that it's boring, it's for old people, where that wasn't Tiger Woods back in '97. And I think, you know, from my point of view, go back to your question with regards how's that changed coaching, you think there's not many people that have basically taken their fingerprint, their golf swing, their identity, and changed that multiple times and been successful with it. You know, Faldo was obviously the best example of that up until Tiger, where he, very successful golfer, and it's like, how do I win majors? Then he's had that conversation with Ledbetter, and then he completely changed his golf swing. And I think what in golf coaching we've learned is the fact that everyone is different and you can't fit people into a mold, you know. And I think when you have the time like Tiger had, when you have the talent that Tiger had, and you have the team around him and the dedication, then it's a little easier to say, well, that mold, I'll try and put myself into that. But he's had those conversations with people to find out what was the right thing for him at that time, whether it was avoiding the back problems or the knee problems, whether it was avoiding one of his errant shots. I think what we see with modern coaching now is that people tend to get pushed into this is what it should look like. Yeah. Whereas it's really about trying to find what do you need to do, because we all move different, we all have different skills, you know, we all play different sports. I've been quite lucky where, you know, I've spent a lot of time with other sportsmen, and that's something that the Middle East has given me, where, you know, professional footballers and tennis players and cricketers, where you watch what they do and they move certain ways because of the sports that they have played. And you have to identify what's the right movement in your golf swing to fit around all those cool stuff that you already do, instead of going, this is what it should be like because that's what he does. And I think that individualism with it is the one thing I think's changed a lot over the last kind of 10, 15 years.
It is remarkable with Tiger. Yeah. You know, the Butch Harmon swing, then totally changed it with Hank Haney, then Chris Como, and then he was his own coach when he won the final of, or 15th of his majors, the most recent to date at the Masters. You know, he sort of figured it out, and he'd kind of come full circle. You've obviously been exposed to the coaching of Pete Cowen. In Doha, legendary figure on the European Tour. He's helped so many top professionals, Lee Westwood, Henrik Stenson, I know latterly Matt Fitzpatrick has worked with him as well. He's done some work with Brooks Koepka. How have you what have you learnt from Pete's methods? Pete has a very distinctive method, doesn't he, of teaching golf, which is quite technical to my eyes at least.
Yeah, I think it's... Pete and Mike and I think a lot of these guys is that they spend a lot of time working with elite golfers, but they do spend a lot of time working with your everyday golfer, and that's the one thing that I think most people don't really see. You know, because you see those guys like Claude Harmon or Butch or anything, you see them with your Ricky Fowlers, you see them with your Henrik Stensons. But again, they've built this up over time working with your everyday golfer. You know, they got to where they are because they started with your 30 handicappers, your 10 handicappers, and they've learned themselves what people do well and what the right thing is for them. And they're all quite different. But I think the thing with like with Pete, essentially is that it may look technical, but it's actually not that technical. You know, it's a sound philosophy that he works with and he thinks is right. Quite still feel based, which essentially it has to be, because you'll feel things different than I feel things, and different than everybody else, and it's just trying to dig down into what that is. But it's all built around a sound principle, and I think I think whatever anyone's philosophy may be, it's understanding that sometimes it has to be adaptable, and I think that's vital, and especially when we go back to what we're doing here in Saudi Arabia, where people haven't had sporting skills. You know, the parents of the children that we're working with and that we will still get into the game, they haven't played sport in school, so they don't have the same movement patterns that we will have developed over school years. So it's learned to be adaptable, and then we even look at it into the disability sector and everyone being able to play the game. You have to adapt around certain situations.
There are certain tropes in golf. I mean, one being that if you have a golf lesson, you have to be prepared to play terrible golf for the next 6 months as you get used to it. And it's sort of my experience of growing up playing. I was completely befuddled by the lessons I had as a kid. Jargon, you know, it was just kind of I didn't understand it, and it's taken me a long time to actually understand how to be constructive in how I actually improve and practice properly, and actually when I have a lesson to actually use what I learned in the lesson, because you can't just have a lesson and improve. You've obviously got to put the time in as well.
I think it's knowing what does that person want to achieve, and then understanding, well, these are the things that you're going to have to do to make that possible. You know, how much time do you have to practice? Well, I don't have a lot, you know, and I think we use like the term quick fix, and there's nothing better than a quick fix if your job is, you know what, I'm just hitting it right, I want to stop hitting it right, and you can fix that, and that can be a very, very simple solution. If you turn around and say, well, you know, I want to be a scratch golfer, then that's a completely different discussion. And I think it has to be about making it simple. You'll get a very small amount of people that want all the detail, that want all the numbers, you know, when it comes to what's your club face angle, what's your path, and what does something like TrapMan give you. And, you know, when you look at the elite part of the game, then that's expected. But if you look at your everyday golfer, it's not necessarily required. I think it's about making it simple, but making it individualistic, not just in terms of methodology or philosophy, but in terms of, well, what are your goals and what does someone need to achieve?
Bringing it back to Golf Saudi, I know that there's obviously certain targets that have been kind of set in every different sector of the game, right up to the sort of elite level as well. What for you would be the big drivers of growth? Would it be to have someone break through and actually achieve some kind of international status? Would it be, you know, reimagining how golf is taught and how it's introducing people to the game at the very sort of basic beginner level as well? Because I know that there's different ways that you're going to filter the game into different areas of society as well.
Yeah. I think everything, you know, because people resonate with different things. You know, I think a little bit like for me, what was Tiger Woods. I'd already played golf, but it was just a hobby at the time. It wasn't a passion. But at the same time, you know, maybe that love was created off doing it at the very beginning stages, and then you just carry on from there. So I think the more different things we can do, the more likely we are to create big numbers, because we do different things that resonate with different people. And again, goes back to that individual kind of aspect to it. You know, different people want different things, they see things differently. So the more variety we have, the better it will be. I don't think it's any one particular thing. And the cool thing is that we're ticking so many boxes, whether that be, you know, elite players. We've got people like Othman Al-Mullah, and we've got Saud Al-Sharif and Khalid Al-Faisal and Abdurrahman Al-Mansour, and people look up to them because they're in the public space and they're achieving great things regionally. But at the same time, then you're looking at a child at school that gets to play the game with his friends, or then goes to the mall with his parents. So I think it's so wide range that I think the more things that we have, the more people get into it. I don't think there's one thing.
You've got your Ladies First program as well. How much of a buzz are these events creating in the kingdom? Give us an insight into, you know, the ripples that the Aramco Team Series and the Saudi Ladies International and events like that are actually creating when local women can see what these girls are doing out here on tour.
Yeah, and I think it all comes back into to change, you know, putting things into the public space that haven't existed before. And I think the the ladies piece, I think ladies golf is definitely going through a transition over the last kind of 5-6 years, and I think what has happened with the Aramco Team Series and the Aramco Saudi Ladies International, and how all of that kind of fits together, it's incredibly fascinating. And you know, we talk about the power of the game, and I think and that's essentially it. You know, how does Golf Saudi become, you know, a catalyst for change in a society that is going through such a massive change? And you know, being able to just give ladies access to golf, it shouldn't be about, oh, let's give ladies access to golf, because everyone should get it. But with the story and the change that Saudi Arabia is going through, it makes it much more of a powerful statement, and we can showcase that change by hosting these international events where, you know, people that don't know what Saudi is about, or have preconceived ideas of what Saudi Arabia is about, get to see things like this that go on, and what we're doing for women's sport in general it's quite fascinating. I mean, you know, we'd launched that program, and we didn't realize that it was going to be as big as it has turned out. You know, 1,000 ladies that I remember having the meeting about it, and it was like, oof, that's a lot, you know, and like that was signed up within 2 hours, you know. And I think as we grow and we have more facilities and we have even more team to do it, 20,000, you know, it's very easy for us to grow that, and it's so excited by it, you know. That's a really cool thing. And you know, we had in Sota Grande for the Aramco Team Series event there, we had all these ladies that come to visit who don't live in Saudi Arabia, and they were incredibly passionate about this, and they were like, I can't believe that this kind of thing's happening for women in Saudi Arabia, because they didn't have access to that. So you know, it's a really cool story, and it will grow and it will continue to get bigger as they go. And you know, these ladies get access to coaching, access to play on the course, equipment, you know. And if we take a couple of them want to be full-time golfers, and you know, their children then become, it's just a snowballing effect.
From the ladies to the kids, because I know you're bringing the curriculum, or you're introducing golf into the curriculum. I might have this stat wrong. 135,000 kids by 2025, I think it is, in the school curriculum. Yeah. I think that's right, but that's obviously a big number. Yeah. And how do you ensure that it's fun, that you hook kids, that, you know, how do you roll that out, basically?
Yeah, I think the school program's pretty cool, because there's so many other people involved in it other than just us at Golf Saudi. You know, Golf Saudi exists around creating a sustainable golf environment for Saudi Arabia, and part of that is then making sure then that we have the right people to deliver it. You know, and we can't be an organisation that just hires more and more golf professionals. We need to be the type of organisation that then creates golf professionals to be able to deliver this. And part of that, you know, one small part of that is then the people that deliver our school program are trained by our team, but they're the school teachers. You know, so the PE teachers themselves are given skills that they didn't have before. They get to lead our program. So straight away that has a massive effect, because it's not me delivering a school program, it's someone that they already know, someone they connect with, someone that is a PE teacher, someone that speaks Arabic. Therefore then all the schools are capable of learning the game. So I think that's one thing, because then by using the network of school teachers that we get access through from the Ministry of Education and the Sports for All Federation, we then have a massive amount of teachers, which makes that school program so much bigger. Because if we had to hire lots of golf professionals, you know, there's not really a sustainable environment there. We can't make this program as big. So we could put it on a large scale. The type of equipment we use, the way that we create it through more game-based learning, makes it fun. You know, and again, it's those early stages, and how does it go on from there is when it starts to get a little bit more variety, where we introduce certain elements at golf club and so on and so forth from there. So I think the school program, how do you entice them? It's got to be fun. You've got to make it specific to their environment, whereas the school teachers are there, they speak Arabic. yeah, the equipment is such a huge aspect as well. You can use it indoors, you can use it outside. You know, I think for us, you would never, when we were at school, never thought back in the UK that you would learn golf inside school. You know, that's kind of where we played football or basketball or whatever it would be. But all this stuff can be indoors, you know, and that's the power of the type of equipment that we use. Makes it easier as well. It's bigger, lighter.
What do you see and then Stephen, in terms of the future of the game? Obviously golf under pressure in this space to sort of be appealing, to attract new people. Golf's had a real boom and surge in popularity in the last sort of 18 months. I think the pandemic actually really played its own part in revitalizing golf for a lot of people and being a place where you can do all the things that you need to be doing in terms of being socially distant and that kind of thing. Last year, certainly in places like the UK and the US, there were massive spikes in the numbers. So, but also golf has still got this, probably this bad image, or not bad image, but an image that it wants to kind of shake off of being, as you mentioned earlier, a sport for older people and not as exciting maybe as some of the other sports. Like, how does golf continue to, for want of a better word, rebrand itself? And
I think that's the opportunity that we have, really, is that because we're doing firsts every day, you know, the rest of the world starts to see what goes on. I mean, you look at the Aramco Team Series event, yeah, that's something that's never ever happened before. To have team golf, you know, we're used to 4 rounds, 72 hole tournaments, and you know, I think for a non-golfer, that's a tough watch. You know, it's not necessarily as engaging as it could be to then bring in a new market of people that would be attracted to the game. So I think it's been a catalyst for change, not just in Saudi Arabia, but worldwide, and doing things that have never been done before, which we can do here because there are no boundaries. You know, we can do what we want if there's a good reason for it, if it fits in with the identity and the way that the company's shaped, then yeah, we can do all those things. And I think the world starts to see, well, that works, and you know, people see that we can put in a national curriculum for everyone in school. We can see that we can change how tournament golf can be put out there on the public space. You know, it's events in public areas that you would normally have. I think all of those things kind of just help create appeal, and other people, if other countries can see a little bit of what we do, then that's great, because then hopefully change happens. I think that the one really cool thing that I get involved in is, you know, we talk about the amount of golf development that will be going on here in Saudi Arabia, and go back to what we were talking about with the national sustainability strategy. How do we make that more important for the population here? And think, look at the region in terms of who runs golf clubs, who works in golf clubs. It's typically people that have come from other parts of the world. You know, what big part of what we're doing is to make sure that the people that work in the industry here are people that live here. You know, Saudi nationals that can then have a career working in the golf industry, whether that be in club management, whether that be in retail, F&B, it doesn't matter. There's so many different aspects to the golf industry. So I think that's quite a unique piece that I think regionally can be quite looked upon and going, well, that's new, that's not been done before, because we're giving people the opportunity for a career.
What's the coolest experience you've had personally since joining Golf Saudi?
I don't know. I don't think there's a single thing. I think the madness actually would probably be the cool thing, because there's just so much going on, and we get embedded to some really cool things on a daily basis. I think for me, a lot of the stuff is it's work in progress, and we're getting closer to launching all these different things. You know, going through the education to give people, you know, jobs in the industry. You know, yeah, it's. I don't know. I don't think there's a particular one thing. I think it all as a package is just exciting on a daily basis, and it's never, you know, a lot of people will say this, but you never come to work and go, oh, it's another day at work. It's like, what's going to happen today? What we're going to get involved in today, and that's pretty fascinating. Yeah,
I mean, not many people, certainly in the golf industry, are in that position. Yeah. Your aspirations for the next few years? I mean, personally and as a project, as the kind of under the Golf Saudi name, what would you love to see achieved in the next few years?
I think for me personally, I think how many people can we have working within the industry that are Saudi nationals. I think one of our goals is by 2025 to have 2,250 Saudi nationals working within the industry, and that's a big number. And through that, we have to educate people as to what club life is, what the golf industry is. I think once we can roll out that education in its entirety and get people moving through that track and then giving them the internships at club, opening up those job opportunities, I think that for me is really quite an important part, because that's really what will make the whole project, a big part of the sustainability aspect to it. So yeah, I think that for me is a really good passion driver for sure. It's
honestly, genuinely, it's so fascinating to see what's going on here. Not just from a professional event experience, which we've obviously been seeing in the region for a couple of years now, but also, looking in and actually watching how this all develops. So for us as kind of bystanders, it's very interesting and exciting. For you on the coalface, it's an amazing opportunity, Stephen. So we really thank you for being on the podcast, and it's great to get an insight into what's going on in Golf Saudi.
Yeah, thanks very much, Robbie.
You can learn more about the project and all the initiatives at Golf Saudi. You can check out the Golf Saudi website, follow on social media, of course. A massive thanks to our guest today, Stephen Troup, and we'll have more guests coming for you very, very soon on the podcast. You've been watching The Power of the Game, the Golf Saudi podcast, more episodes on the way.